All right, everybody. This is definitely a strange phenomenon here. It is a Monday, and there is UltraChen happening. I mean, is like I feel like the cosmos is out of order or something like that. But yes, we are back here on Monday for another, for a rare Monday UltraChen episode. A first attack and level 3 focus. So we are going to be starting today with first attack. So in case you guys, have started watching in 2014, started watching UltraChen, picked up on us from, the Capcom Pro Tour, and was wondering what exactly first attack and level 3 focus are. Well, first attack is a show that I start with on Mondays. That I basically try to teach as much of the basics as possible. I try to educate people on how to play Street Fighter who really don't know much about fighting games. Running the gamut from I don't know anything about fighting games all the way up until I know enough about fighting games, but I need to get better. And level 3 focus typically analyzes some very high level concepts and some very in-depth analysis and such. And later on today, Ultra David will be analyzing something. So today, we're going to get going here with first attack. Now, before I start, I guess you can call this is going to be story time here on first attack. Because, hang on a second, guys. There we go. We are going to be doing a story time here because I've been doing first attack for a couple of years now. And every year at the beginning, I always kind of do a reboot. So this is the start of the third year. At the start of every year, I've always kind of done a reboot and tried to bring the conversation way back, start teaching Street Fighter from the most basic of levels again. So it's something I think about a lot. It's something I think about how somebody who has no idea how to play Street Fighter learns how to play Street Fighter. Well, so just recently, one of my coworkers at my job, he's become kind of a Twitch monster now. So he likes turning on Twitch, and he likes watching various streams. He just likes having it on in the background and such. And so he's put on League of Legends, he's put on StarCraft, and he's also put on a lot of fighting game streams recently because he knows I'm really into it. So he kind of wanted to check out what's going on with the fighting game streams and stuff like that. So he's been watching a lot of fighting game streams, and he really enjoys them. It's the genre of game that he seems to enjoy the most that he gets to watch on Twitch. So, natural course of events happen. He starts watching, gets to know some of the players, starts enjoying watching Street Fighter, and of course, that eventually leads to the whole, you know what, I want to give this a shot. So what he did was he purchased himself a TE stick, and he bought the game, and he started playing with it, and sure enough, just like pretty much everybody who starts to play Street Fighter from scratch, he found out he didn't know anything about the game at all, and he is having a really, really hard time learning the game. And it's really interesting because, he says, he said things to me that I hear all the time, like, I'm actually really surprised to find out how much skill goes into fighting games. I'm surprised it's not just hitting buttons and stuff happens. There's a lot of these weird misconceptions of playing fighting games that people have when they don't actually play fighting games. And so I've started talking to him. He's been asking me what's the best way to learn and such. So, so he's been asking me what the best way to learn. And so I've been kind of going through my first attack memory and giving him ideas on how to do stuff. And it's really interesting because as a person who's played Street Fighter for over 20 years now, there's so many things I take for granted when it comes to fighting games. And, the first attack episode I did this year, I talked about different ways to learn. If you have a friend who can help you, I talked about, these little mini games, like try using just one button or whatever, go online and try playing all this stuff. Limit yourself, don't jump, all these other things. And they all sound like really, really good beginner exercises to me. Interestingly enough, it's still not beginnery enough. It's still not low level enough. Because these kind of advices, this kind of advice is not helping someone like my coworker learn how to play Street Fighter. He goes online and, I mean, the opponent literally just blows him up. He doesn't know what he's doing. And at this point in time, when you go online in Street Fighter 4, the only people online right now are mostly people who've been playing the game for at least 3 years or 4 years or so. So as a result, most people up there know what they're doing. It's very hard to run into somebody else online that doesn't know what they're doing, so that you two can kind of do this little battle out. So even all of the stuff that I've talked about before, about all these one-player tricks and stuff like that, like how to go online and learn stuff, aren't even going to apply to him, aren't going to apply to him at all. And, you know, we talked about this because he has played StarCraft before and such. And, you know, StarCraft has a very one-player element. The story mode is really good. When you play even online against somebody else, when you start off, you can kind of play one-player-y mining stuff. Granted, you'll get slaughtered later on, but at least it feels like you're doing something at the beginning. Fighting games, you go online, you get beat up instantaneously because right at the start, the opponent can just come at you and kill you. So it's been a really interesting exercise for me because I'm sitting here talking to him about fighting games and such. And just talking to him and getting an idea of how hard it is to understand fighting games is really starting to try to change my thought process on how to teach Street Fighter to extremely beginners. And I'm not even just talking about people who watch stuff and kind of get an idea of what's going on. I mean, I'm talking about, I have never played fighting games before. I'm picking up a joystick or my control pad and I'm going to play this for the first time, and I literally have no idea. I didn't play Street Fighter 2 a long time ago like a lot of people have. Like, you see them come up and they like, I still remember how to throw a fireball. No, there are some people who are getting into this who have absolutely no idea what to do. So the way that I've started trying to think about this, about teaching Street Fighter again, is trying to bring it back to the one-player game. This is going to be the easiest way to learn fighting games. Well, not the easiest, but it's probably a fairly recommended way because you've got to learn stuff about the game on your own. And, you know, I hear this from a lot of people. They have terrible online, they have terrible... they don't have a scene around them. All they can do is play themselves and play against the computer. So I really, really need to approach learning Street Fighter from a one-player point of view. And I'm really going to dial it back. So this episode here is really... I mean, this is going to be key for extreme beginners trying to learn fighting games. So hopefully this will help. And, you know... once I get this episode, once it's on YouTube, if you have friends who don't play fighting games, you know, who are trying to learn on them by themselves, you know, feel free to point them to this video and such like that, and give me some feedback on whether or not it helps. So, but yeah, this is basically going to be about learning Street Fighter the one-player way, the way that most of us are going to have to end up learning. Because even when you try to learn with somebody else, sometimes it's not very fun, because if the other guy's much better than you, they blow you up, and you just really have no idea where to start. Okay, so let's talk about the one-player experience when it comes to fighting games. And no, I'm not talking about Marvel. I'm approaching this from a Street Fighter perspective. So let's go into my trusty, handy-dandy PowerPoint slides. Yeah, okay. So we're going to start here on learning Street Fighter. Okay. When you try to learn Street Fighter from the very beginning, you don't know anything, right? You don't know what a special move is. You don't know what a normal is. You don't know what the heck is going on. So, when you're trying to learn Street Fighter... Wait, is this the right slide? These are not the right slides. These are not the right slides. Hang on a second, guys. This is the first episode slides. Let me go back and take this down. I have one player Street Fighter. There we go. Play from start. We can't get away with 1 week without technical difficulties, especially on a Monday. God, it's not like I've done this recently. I have no idea what's going on, man. Jeez. What do you expect out of me? Alright, hang on a second. Let's do this here. Slideshow. Boom. Alright, there we go. How do you start? How do you start? And like I said, this is kind of approaching it from a one-player Street Fighter viewpoint. This is you sitting down with the machine. You don't even know a scene exists. You're just looking online for stuff to help you learn and such like that. You come across this video, so how do I learn Street Fighter by myself? Well, the problem with trying to play yourself is that all the in-game tools aren't particularly useful right away. The training mode, for example, you can go into training mode, but there's no instructions in training mode. You go into training mode, you sit there, and you're like, I don't even know what to do. You just walk back and forth, you hit buttons. Like, literally, if you don't know fighting games, training mode seems like the most useless thing for you because you have no idea what's going on here. You're just sitting there staring at the screen, hitting buttons, and you're like, okay, this is kind of interesting, right? So, what do you do in training mode? Like, pretty much nothing. So, hang on a second. Then you go online, and then you get beat up. You play online, and you just get blown up so fast that there really is no point. Like, there's literally no point to going online and playing at the start. Especially today, because this is not a brand new game. Even when Ultra comes out, it's not going to be a brand new game. It's going to be different, but it's not going to be different enough that if you're just getting into Street Fighter the first time, that you're going to expect to play against a lot of people at your level when you first start ranked. So if you came across this video as a player who just picked up Ultra, you know, I'm warning you right now. Even if you go on ranked right now, you're still going to get blown up pretty badly. And then you play against the computer. So you play against the computer, and you know what? Fighting game AI is really stupid. They still have yet to figure out a good way to program it. And in fact, if you play on normal difficulty, usually the first two computer opponents you fight sit there, they do nothing, they don't block, they get hit by everything, they don't do anything, and then you get to the third computer, and the third computer beats you up. Because all of a sudden they start doing things, and they start blocking every once in a while. And you have no idea what's going on, so you just get destroyed. So, like, you can't even learn by playing against the computer very well unless you know what you're looking for. But we'll get into that in just a little bit. And, of course, there's always a situation where there's no one around you to play. So you don't have a scene, you don't have anyone near you, or you have a scene and you're scared to death. You live close to Wednesday night fights, and you're just like, you know what? If I go to Wednesday night fights, I'm just going to get destroyed. I'm not even going to be worthy playing on casuals. You know, people are going to laugh at me. I'm not going to go to the scene. Okay, so I tell everybody go to the scene, try to make friends, whatever like that. But you know what? Some of you are just not going to do that, or you guys just don't have a scene to go to. So the question is, what do I do? How am I going to learn Street Fighter? How am I going to learn Street Fighter? And in the very first episode of First Attack earlier this year, much earlier this year, I had a slide that was entitled "No Friends, No Online." And this is it. I talked about practicing execution, watching a lot of matches on YouTube, trying to communicate with players via social media, don't be scared to travel, reach out and find a scene. All this good stuff. And again, now that I've had a chance to talk with my coworker and really get an idea of how hard it is to get into fighting games, I realized that, you know, even this could be considered level 2 advice on learning how to play Street Fighter. This is not low level enough to help people play. And so I'm going to try to do this in as basic of a term as possible. And yeah, you're not going to be able to establish your own scene either, obviously, because you're just starting up. So, in order to learn Street Fighter and how to play against other people, this is going to be very, very unintuitive. But my first piece of advice is forget about playing against other people right away. Don't even think of this as a goal. Don't put this in your mind like, I want to learn how to fight other people. because you're just not there yet. The funny thing is, most of us who have been playing Street Fighter for 20 years literally have been playing against the computer. When Street Fighter 2 first came out at the location that I first heard about it, which was the UCLA arcade, I was in high school at the time. My brother was going there. Nobody played versus. Everyone just played against the computer. And everyone just put up quarters and took turns and played. So when one person would play against the computer, lose, switch, next person would come in, play against the computer. And it was just like a standard video game. You were just using your video game strategies of how to fight this other thing, and you would find patterns and do stuff. No one was playing against other people. And through time, you just learn all these little things about your moves and stuff like that. I've had 20 years to do this. Most of the people who are trying to learn right now, they don't have 20 years to do this, right? But it is still important to get to know the game before you start to try to play other people. And so I've broken it down into three kind of main fundamental levels. And this is super beginner fundamentals. And in fact, they're so beginner that these are going to be so philosophical. I mean, I'm going the philosophy route here. So, old-time fisticuffs gaming. I like that. So here are the three main fundamental concepts that I'm talking about with Street Fighter. The first fundamental is learn yourself. And that is, what I mean by that is you've selected a character. You just decided to go with a character. You have to learn as much as you can about this character. And I don't mean as quickly as possible. You have to learn the ins and outs of your characters, and this will come with time. But the whole idea of it is to learn your own character, learn yourself first. Find out what it is that your character is capable of doing. Again, I don't mean memorize every normal move. I don't mean memorize every special move and what the properties are, frame data, invincibility, whatever. No, none of that stuff. Just start learning your character. The second fundamental is to learn your environment. Now, all of us, I'm going to get into this a little bit more in details, but when we play video games, most one-player games is about you versus the environment. In a fighting game, the environment just happens to be the other character on the screen. That is what you are interacting with. So what you want to do is learn the environment. Learn to focus on the opponent. And again, I will go into this in much more drastic detail, and that will make a lot more sense. And the last one is, and this is some Phil Jackson stuff here. Learn what you can learn. Right? I have it listed here specifically about find out uses for moves and such, but you'll see what I mean in a little bit. So the first thing you do is learn yourself, then you learn your environment, and then the last thing is you learn what there is to be learned. How's that for some Zen stuff there for you guys? Okay, let's go. Ooh, what is going on over here? I'm seeing some funkiness on my screen. Is everything okay over there? Does everyone still see the stream? Because there's some funny stuff going here. Yeah, okay. Looks like everyone's okay. Okay, so let's move on. Let's move on with this power. Actually, you know what? I'm going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, I'll get into the first fundamental here. We're going to talking about learning yourself. So stick around, guys. I will be right back.